Hello and welcome to Jill Cadman Creations. Today we are going to use the Mega Succulents Altenew stamp set, and I love this big background stamp set. I have it in my Misty, and we're going to do some watercoloring. I have a piece of Strathmore watercolor paper cut down to 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, so I don't have to go back and trim it after we're done. I'm prepping it with an anti-static powder tool. Make sure that it's all good and covered here. I don't want any stray embossing powder anywhere it's not supposed to be. And I'm just kind of making sure that it's centered up in the middle of the stamp there. I'm not particularly worried about where, but I'm just kind of making sure it's centered. I was going to do white embossing powder, but then I decided that I wanted a black outline on my flower instead. So I chose VersaFine Onyx Black ink. And I have actually done this voiceover. This is the 4th time now. Twice I forgot to hit record, so it's been one of those days. Make sure that you get the center of this flower when you're doing the impression, and making sure that that area is really good and stamped, just because it's a little bit more detailed than the bigger petals on the outside. Now we're going to pick that up and do some clear embossing powder over the entire image. I keep my embossing powders in those little containers, like Jennifer McGuire keeps them in the great big containers. I don't need that much embossing powder. Keep my little spoons, instead of inside the lid, I keep them in a little bowl right beside me. I bought a great big huge pack of those things for like $4 or something at Walmart, and just have a whole ton of them. So if I lose one, it's okay. I have a whole ton of them. And I just scoop it up, sprinkle it out, and it's perfect. I do not like keeping them inside of my embossing powder containers, because then it gets embossing powder on my fingers, and that just freaks me out. Make sure your heat gun is good and hot so that you can melt all of that embossing powder that's on there. And that's just always magic, isn't it? Melted embossing powder is just something so beautiful and magical about that. And it's a little warm. Go ahead and get all of that melted, and then we're going to move into some watercolor. We're going to do clean color real brush markers, nothing fancy, just simple and easy. Coffee filters are a wonderful thing. Keep using the coffee filters. Reuse the coffee filters. Get everything out of the way, and we'll start that watercoloring here. I don't have a great big huge spray bottle either. I have one of those little pen sprayers. That's an itty bitty little thing. That right there. It's actually from Stampin' Up. I've had it for years and I love it. We're going to use red, orange, yellow, green, blue, like a royal blue, and purple. And just scribble on the color. We're just scribbling. Blue and purple are my favorite colors, so I always tend to put way more purple and blue in a rainbow thing than I do any other colors, just because they're my favorite, and I absolutely love blue and purple. Sitting here looking at this video, that green is, oh my goodness, put your eyes out green, but on the card and in the pictures you'll see it's not woohoo as bright as it seems on here. And as you see, my lines keep getting of color get wider and wider as I'm going out, and I'm going into that blue right now. Just scribble on around and just keep going in circles. In a minute I will pick up a post-it note. I don't put post-it notes on my paper and stick them on the ends of my paper to keep my fingers from getting ink on them. I don't want fingerprints on my whatever I'm working on. Distress inks and that kind of thing will tend to pick up the oils from your fingers. So I always, I keep turning this and my fingers are on here, but they're on the very edges of the paper most of the time. And I don't want to cover over it and have a fingerprint in the middle of it. So, and also after you get the paper wet and have ink on it, you don't want your fingerprints in that wet ink either. So that wouldn't be good. So just literally covering all of the card up. I'm not even worried about the leaves and the different petals on anything and just scribbling some color on. Lots of purple. Love purple. And now for the magic. Couple good sprays. Just spray the water and watch it happen. Oh, it's so pretty. It's so pretty. Now, I did heat set this with my heat gun because it was really, really wet. So I did heat set it. Make sure everything is perfectly dry. And it even made sure it had the hard lines in it because I like the lines in it of the different watercolor. It is a little work, so I'm going to run it through my Big Shot, my Platinum, Spellbinders Platinum 6, and run it through just with a sheet of typing paper, just so it doesn't get any marks from my cutting pads or anything. And I put my cutting pad in a little crooked, so it wouldn't go all the way through. That's okay. I just cranked it back the other way. And now my panel is nice and flat, and it stuck to my paper a little bit. That's okay. Get this out of the way, and I made my own die cuts. I don't have the money, very honestly, to go and buy new dies all the time, but I love those giant word dies. And I said, I have a silhouette, and I made my own. And I'm actually going to share that SVG file with you. Head on over to my blog, and the link is in the description below the video. And you can snag that SVG file for free. There's absolutely no charge for it whatsoever. I made it for myself and thought I'd share it with y'all as well. And what I'm doing is I'm treating it just like I would if I die cut it with my die cut machine. I die cut it 3 times with my silhouette, and I'm just using my spatula to very gingerly pull everything out, and I set my mat to the side, and I'll clean that up later. I'm going to use some Scotch liquid glue and to adhere these together. This is about empty, and so I figured I need to start using it up. And these are chunky letters here, so it won't matter if it oozes out around it at all, and I can squish them together. The one thing that I do really like about the Scotch glue over some other ones is it is a little bit slower to dry, and some people don't like that, but when it comes to putting these letters and stuff together, I really like that because then I can make sure that they're lined up really well, especially with these bigger, chunkier ones. On more delicate stuff, I will use a different adhesive just because this doesn't work very well for delicate things. But for this chunky stuff, it holds well. It gives me a few minutes to make sure everything's lined up really well, and it sticks. So literally just putting the glue down, making sure it's in the right places. And I did, where the letters connect, I did add like a dollop of glue there to give it a little bit more stability. Even though you're stacking 3 of them up, you know, a little stability doesn't hurt anything. So stack them up. And I actually got better lighting in my basement. I don't know if you can tell from my previous videos. I changed one light bulb in my basement and an overhead light, and it made all the difference in the world. And I absolutely am in love with it. I see so much better now. And even though I don't like overhead lighting, not a huge fan of it. I prefer lamps. It made my crafting experience so much better. I actually felt like didn't feel like I was in a dungeon anymore because my basement's unfinished. So I have a sliding glass door in here, but it's a deck over it, so it doesn't get a whole lot of light in here. So it is what it is. I have space to craft, and I'm very blessed in that I have space to craft. So I'm very, very happy about that. And I have to just make adjustments as needed. So I've gotten my stuff all glued together now, and I'm going to make it shine. I have a little overspray box here, and this is Perfect Pearls. It's the pre-mixed one, but you can make your own. Use Perfect Pearls and water, and ta-da! I sprayed these really heavy because I wanted to make sure that they were really shimmery. They did come out kind of splotchy, so to take care of that, I'm just taking a paper towel and dabbing them off. Literally just dabbing them off. Put a little pressure on them and lift. Ta-da! Now they're not so splotchy, and they're still very, very, very pretty. Very, very, very shimmery. I really like this. Realigned my L a little bit. It kind of slid. And now we're going to put our card together. Very simple card. Love is going to go right on top of that, and I'm not putting anything else with it. And I'm going to use a 110-pound Nina Solar White card base to mount everything on. The adhesive that I'm about to use and put all over the back of the watercolor piece is no longer available. So I'm just trying to use it up. Usually I like to use either liquid glue, liquid adhesive, or the big ATG tape gun. But I want to go ahead and use up this adhesive since it's no longer available. And my head gets in the way, sorry, my big old head. Press everything down, make sure it's good and stuck down. And I always like to go back and make sure that my crease is really good. Teflon bone folder makes that happen without putting the shiny marks on it. And then we're going to use our liquid adhesive again and stick down our die cut word here. I'm just putting it on the thickest pieces. I'm not worried about it going everywhere because this will stick down no problem. And put that on the front of our card. And I disappear for just a second here because my T-square ruler is usually in a cup right beside me, and I looked up and my T-square ruler was gone because I'd used it on something else on the other side of my craft area. So I had to get up and get it because I couldn't reach it from where I was sitting. Make sure that my sentiment is straight across there, and make sure that everything is centered in the width-wise as well. For the die cuts that I made on the SVG files, I did one that is 5 1/4, which is this size, and then I also did one that is 4 inches, so that you could put it on a portrait card instead of a landscape card, but it still gives that appearance of the big bulky letters. So really like that. And I just set a big acrylic block on top of it for a second while I cleaned everything off, and then I'll pick it up so you can see it. And I thank you for joining me today. Head on over to my blog and get the product links, as well as grab your free SVG file over there on my blog. And here's some close-ups. Thank you for joining me today. Have a great one.